what I'm reporting on is work that has been done in the past couple of years. Actually, it started in 2020 during the height of COVID. And it was a program that was developed under the circumstances with an understanding that a large number of young people, young researchers and students were really not occupied. And so this was partly an idea to allow people, to encourage young people to join us in a research program. So initially when COVID made its cataclysmic appearance, we could see that there was a great need for research on the impact of the COVID pandemic. And since large numbers of people were confined at home, we decided that we would work on a project that enabled us to understand what was going on during a time when the pace of events was fast, and there was a need for responsiveness. Also, what we understood was that there was a need for generating better information and information that had better specificity and usability to support decision-making of education policymakers, but also even more so on the ground. So after this period, there have been thematic ways of research which look at the impacts on learning. Although our research was done in 2020 and published in 2021, quite a lot has happened since then. And so this is a moment to reflect on the experience of JET and how things have progressed since then. So this early research response, as I indicated, was based on the most acute period of COVID-19. And so we developed a system where 12 themes of research were done, which included financing during the COVID period, the responses of government and civil society, curriculum, technology, education at home, and the teacher responses, and others. Within the broad rubric of viewing COVID as an opportunity that could lead to improvements in schools, in the education to build back better. So although it was done real time in that period, it has since dated. And so I thought it might be useful to nevertheless look at the program and to identify what might still be considered relevant and apposite now in our current circumstances. So the report was published in partnership with the Commonwealth Secretariat in 2021. And subsequently, it was commissioned by UNESCO and Rhodes University and an Open Society Foundation to conduct another research program. And I think I neglected to emphasize that these programs were largely conducted online. So the idea of bringing people together, irrespective of their location, in this period was seen as very useful. So just to jump to the conclusions of one of the projects and one of the research programs, this was a focus on parents and caregivers. And the research, which did include, when time allowed it, which did include interviews with families, qualitative interviews, it came up with the following findings. And the first is that even most highly educated struggled with undertaking tasks in supervising or in guiding, rather, the children in the home, and lacked access to topics and ways in which they could focus their assistance to the children in the house, the school-going learners in the house. What comes out of that is it's really important to engage, to support parents to engage positively with their learners, their children. What came out of this work was also a sense that there is a gap between parents and the schools, and that many parents need guidelines to assist them, and perhaps even a contribution from lead teachers on a weekly, monthly, or quarterly basis to the parents. What also was seen was that the internet at that stage, and probably even now, is not the best way for communicating education or communicating learning opportunities with school-going learners. And what was realized that even though there was substantial success in getting learning online, that teaching and learning is about more than providing content, and that again, learners and teachers and parents needed support in working with these resources, both with getting access to improving their familiarity with online resources, but also using non-technological approaches. So that is the basis from which I would like to represent the one chapter from the book, and I would say it's still well worth a look at, because it does cover other enduring issues, such as related to funding of education, and also identity around access to the system. So if we look at the scenarios which were developed to explain the impacts on learner scores. So I'm moving to learner scores now, in order to bring us to a number of other arguments around how learner achievement can be addressed, or loss of learning. So in this case, this is a World Bank document, but what I think is interesting is that it demonstrates three curves where the learning loss reflects differently. So on the left, we have a learning curve where there is a lower average, where the distribution of scores of learner ability as a whole moves lower in terms of ability scores. The second graph represents a situation where there's a flattening of the curve, as it were, and where there is a expansion of inequality between higher scoring and lower scoring learners. And then a third curve represents a situation where a large number of learners perhaps have left or re-entered the system where there is a challenge around access. So what this tells us is that access to learning and learning loss can appear differently in different contexts. And these three scenarios might all occur at the same time. This is, in fact, this corroborates the previous scenarios. And this is, for instance, based on Tim's data, which shows in the curves in the B example, it shows how there is a difference which emerges more clearly between no fee paying and fee paying schools. So this again corroborates the earlier data. There's also information, especially important data from Van der Berg, for instance, and Van Wyk, which reflects how the differences in learning loss occur between grades and subjects, which reflects the need to pay attention to how we should address these particular unique experiences. So if one stands back and looks at all the various study methods and the results and the methodologies they have that have been used, a lot has been developed since the early months when the only proxy of learning loss was missed days of school. So what we see really is we need to understand these issues at the subject level, but also that most of this work has been focused on mathematics and language, the gateway subjects. But we lack information on other subjects at this level of intensity, such as science curriculum. Coming to the close, what the JET data suggests is that there is still a very important role to play for parents and parental involvement, and especially after the lockdown period. So what we've seen is parents being thrown into the deep end over parents or caregivers being thrown into an emergency situation. And the sense that we have is that this period of interaction was both daunting, but also very important for parents to immerse themselves if they had the time and if there were facilities available to engage with their children's learning. What we see from the analysis that have been presented here is that a lot of the emphasis has gone back to teachers and issues of assessment and accountability, and of course that is critically important. But what I would argue one could draw from the early JET study is that there's a shift away from parents, caregivers, and the home. And lastly, there is the importance to encourage learners to return to school after they have left school under the circumstances pre-COVID and during and after COVID. Thank you very much, Chair.